मचल रहा जो अपने पथ पर, लाख मुसीबत आने में, मिली सफलता जग में उसको, जीने में मर जाने में. A very hearty welcome to one and all. It fills my heart with immense pleasure to welcome you all to the second day of the annual conclave of Hindu College, Vaktavya 2016. I request our principal, Dr. Anju Srivastav, to kindly speak a few words.
Hold my pen, please. Good morning to all of you, please. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the second day of Vaktavya. We are honored to have amidst us one of the most distinguished members of Parliament, Mr. Varun Gandhi. And I'm sure each one of us is eager to hear him. In our informal discussion in our room just now, I came to know that he's speaking on a very relevant issue, and that is justice. So without taking much time, I'll just make a few comments. The students involved The students involved in this event have been working with great zeal and enthusiasm over a long period of time to bring this conclave to fruition. The college is fully supportive of such endeavors, and I personally appreciate the hard work of each and every person involved with the conceptualization and implementation of this stellar event. If the last year has taught us anything as a global society, it is that the value of discussion cannot be overstated. From small confrontations and disagreements on smaller personal levels to issues across borders, we have seen time and again the victory of conversation. We have witnessed the iconic summit in Paris, where leaders across the world committed to a better future. We have also seen the resurgent spirit of peace as it stays undeterred by detractors, with India and Pakistan pledging to cooperate. It is my sincere hope that over the course of this two-day event, the participants will try to make the most of this unique opportunity to interact with the best minds across various fields. I congratulate the organizers for conceptualizing a format that will encourage interaction. I hope this is going to be an enriching experience for everyone involved. All the best.
Thank you, ma'am. To explain to us the very ways in which the youth needs to be tapped, we have with us an Indian politician who has assumed unsurmountable heights at a very early age in life. I request Mr. Varun Gandhi to kindly come up on the dais. Please, sir. He has not only been seen as an active member of the parliament, but also as an avid columnist, writing articles for several national dailies in India, covering as many as 17 newspapers. He is a keen poet, writing books that have only turned to be bestsellers. Without much ado, I have the honor to welcome with us the General Secretary of the BJP, Mr. Varun Gandhi.
Dr. Srivastav ji, Dr. Manisha Pandey ji, the Honorable Prime Minister Ashish Holaria ji. It's not every day I get to meet a Prime Minister. equally important in any democracy, the leader of opposition, Akhilesh Tripathi ji. Saurabh Basoya ji, Manoj Chaudhary ji, who's here with me. Thank you. Ab aap hat jaiye bhaiya. It's like a lurking presence at the back. It's very frightening. I'm thrilled to be here today, and I'm deeply grateful to be given this privilege of speaking to you today. When I thought about what I wanted to say, the first thing that came to my mind was that I wanted to give a heavy policy-laden speech. But then I thought about all the times that I had listened to people growing up, and I thought that's probably the last thing that you want to hear. And so I thought about really what the central issue of our time is. 5 days ago, I went to Symbiosis in Pune to speak, and one of the issues that I was speaking on was farmer suicides. And as I landed in Pune airport, I saw about 20 private jets there. And I thought, how strange that Maharashtra, which has had 50% of all farmer suicides in the last 2 years, or the last 10 years, has also got the largest amount of billionaires and the largest amount of private jets. The times in which we live are indeed interesting and challenging. When I think about what it means to be young, I think the central theme about being young is the ability to be imaginative, the ability to think freely, the ability to voice dissent, the ability to be disagreeable even. And I think that the great thing about India is that you may have seen in one election the right will come to power, and the one election the left will come to power. But the moment they come to power, everybody is a centrist. And the reason is not because of the greatness of the people involved, but it's because of the sociological ethos that we live in. And the systems, the processes through which we live, which could be called sociological, it could be called socio-psychological, it could be called socio-economic, are systems where inherently we abhor centralization beyond a point, we abhor people muzzling individual freedom. When I think about what I want to say, the first thing that I remember is when Benjamin Franklin was coming down the steps of City Hall when they were writing the Constitution. A woman was there and she said, "Mr. Franklin, what manner of constitution are you going to bequeath us?" And he said, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." And the truth is that democracy, the democracy that you and I both partake in, is not a free ride. It's not a system where we can be lax and hope that the wheels will continue to function, because it doesn't work like that. Democracy doesn't live around us. It either lives within us or it does not live at all. And I think that the one way in which we carve our individual space is to define what really defines the times in which we live. And I think the one thing that defines the times in which we live is injustice. I was talking to Honorable Principal Srivastav ji, and I was saying that I'm writing a piece next week about two very interesting political candidates. One of them is Bernie Sanders. Do you know who that is? And one of them is Jeremy Corbyn, who's just taken over as the leader of the Labour Party. And Bernie Sanders is on the anvil of really exploding nationally and challenging Hillary Clinton, who's the ultimate establishment candidate. And it occurred to me that both of these candidates' movements, like the movement originally of Barack Obama, was driven by young people. And it was driven around the central theme of injustice. It was driven around the central theme that for millions and hundreds of millions of people in countries like India, life isn't fair, systems are skewed towards the systemically advantaged, people like myself, and that not everyone gets a fair deal. And that shouldn't be the world in which we live. I was just thinking about something yesterday, and I thought I'd just scribble it down. A few days ago, a man came to see me, and he said that this is my father, and he said that I would like to speak to you alone. He was a villager from my constituency. And I said, sure, what would you like to speak to me about? And he said, can you have my father declared dead? I said, why on earth would you want your father to be declared dead? He said, because he's been ill for about 2.5 years now, and I've exhausted my savings, I've sold my land, and I can't pay for his medical bills anymore. If you have him declared dead, I will claim his insurance and serve him the best I can. At first, I didn't believe him. And then I started researching about just something that I'd bring up a little later, which is medical debt. The number one cause of being not just poor, but getting poorer, going from one asset class to the other, is agricultural distress in this country. The second is medical debt. 38% of people in what you call the Bimaru states suffer from medical debt of more than 2 lakh rupees. There is more than a 90% chance that one of these people will end up below the poverty line if they're not in the next 5 years after that, succeeding that. Just correspond that with the fact that in India, we have 17.6 lakh crores of bad debt in banks. Now, who's taken this debt? Is it nurses and doctors and teachers and cooks and street cleaners? No. It's all people with private jets and holiday homes. I don't want to take any names here, but you know all the names, right? I mean, the joke goes, but it's not really a joke, that if you owe 1 lakh to the bank owns you. But if you owe 100 crores to the bank, you own the bank. And that really is the irony of our times. And you can have people who have put in no personal liability and who have taken, there is an industrialist who I don't want to name, who's got a loan of 86,000 crores. But their earnings are less than 1,000 crores a year, so they're never going to pay that money back. And ultimately, what's going to happen? The bank is going to sit across the table from them, and they're going to say, okay, we maaf karo 50,000 crores. I mean, that's 50,000 crores. How many colleges can be built with 50,000 crores? How many hospitals can be built? The reason that India is the way she is people are allowed to get away with whatever they can. There's no system in India of bringing people to book. If a person like me tweets against the 5 top industrialists of India, I may get a call from my party leader tomorrow saying, don't do this. We need these people more than we need you. No, it's probably the truth. I haven't tried it. Maybe I'll try it sometime. But, we've gone in India from medievalism to postmodernism without bothering to create a civilization in between. And this has happened in 100 years. 100 kilometers from where I'm speaking to you today, Khap Panchayats are taking place. And they're ruling that two married people are now legally brother and sister because they come from the same gotra. Something that would be absurd to me, but this is a social reality. So we're really juxtaposing two timelines, straddling two timelines simultaneously. And also, unfortunately, one of the fundamental questions of our times is that the rules for two kinds of Indians, the advantaged and the disadvantaged, are very drastically different. I was thinking about justice, about what justice really means. And I thought there's a moral concept of justice, which is what we both know. And then there's a political concept of justice, which is the justice that suits the status quo, the justice that suits the ruling class. And that is somewhere meshed into judicial justice as well. I was thinking about the tragedy in Bhopal and how after 18,000 people dying and 56,000 people being permanently injured, 330 million out of 470 million, which was the Supreme Court order to be paid, which Union Carbide, which is now Dow Chemicals, agreed to, 330 million has still not been paid. Why? I was looking at the fact that 66% of the prison population in this country, and this is a National Crime Records Bureau statistic, will be in jail for 2 years as under trials without their trials even starting. I mean, this is an appalling statistic. One might expect this in North Korea, but in a democracy? Why does this happen? It happens because over 65% of people that are put into jail are illiterate. They may be actually, supposedly literate, but they're functionally illiterate. Because in India, the paimana of literacy is signing your name, which really means not a hell of a lot. And the fact is, because they're illiterate, they cannot make bail because they're poor. And because they're illiterate and poor, they don't have access to judicial redressal. And this explains the inability of most people of India to get justice. I mean, we live in Delhi, right? I mean, how difficult is it to go to a police station? Imagine if you're on the wrong side of advantage, right? Imagine if you're destitute, as it is you're lacking in confidence, and you're raped. I mean, there's a case of Kawasi Hidme. Has anybody heard of this case? Kawasi Hidme was a case who was released the same week of Salman Khan's hit and run case. And no media covered it because media thrives on celebrity, frankly. And she was from Chhattisgarh's Bastar region. And she lost 7 years of her life. She was in jail for 7 years. And she was raped so badly while she was in jail that she had to have her uterus taken out. And after 7 years of being tortured, humiliated, raped, and repeatedly savaged, the court suddenly ruled that she was not a Maoist and let her go. I mean, that woman is never going to be the same again. And who's going to pay for it? I mean, I was just looking at the Sanjay Dutt case. I was just reading about it day before yesterday, and it said there was an order given by Justice Naresh Patil and V.L. Achalia in which they said that in lieu of the repeated furloughs given to him in the Arms Act case, which I'm not against that, but the fact is that the judge themselves said that if he were a common man, would he be granted these furloughs? He wouldn't. You need to give 10,000 rupees every time you leave jail for a furlough. How many people can afford to pay that 10,000 rupees to see their families? Not everybody. Because sometimes it's the main earner of the family who's in jail. I mean, these issues are not new, right? If you read Plato's Republic, Thrasymachus, he says, while arguing with Socrates, he says that, and this is written thousands of years ago, he says the powerful and the rich can get away with injustice exactly whenever they please. And, you know, I was reading about not just these cases as such, but when you read systemically, I was reading this paper yesterday by George Arundale on Indian students and politics. And just permit me to read this to you. He says, politics has come to mean just agitational, constitutional or otherwise, either against certain measures which the government of the country has thought fit to adopt, or in favor of certain measures which the government does not adopt and which the agitator thinks it ought to adopt. And either kind of agitation has come to involve, in the minds of many, the imputing of bad motives to the opposite party. Can you guess when this was written? It was written in 1914. That means over 100 years, the nature of governance, of politics, and of agitation really hasn't changed. What does this say in fancy English? It basically says tu tu me me, right? That's what it says. And the thing is that, see, what's the point of being young? The point of being young is to challenge the status quo, right? It's whether you look at art, whether you look at architecture, whether you look at science, whether you look at literature, whether you look at sociology, psychology, any of these fields, what is today the norm was once considered iconoclastic, it was once considered transgressive, it was once considered, you know, in some cases, terrorism. And today, those thoughts, those ideologies, those nuggets of information are called wisdom, right? And so what does that mean? I think for young people, what it means is not to be lazy. I want to ask you one question. How many people here have filed a PIL? Okay, well done. How many people have filed an RTI? No, that's fine. See, I know the reason why you don't do this. It's not because you don't care. It's because you have no faith in the system. It's because you don't believe that anyone's going to answer you properly. It's because you feel that you don't want to waste your time in bureaucratic red tape. And because 99% of the time you're right. That is exactly why you don't participate. But look at what young people have managed to achieve, right? Do you remember the Occupy Wall Street movement? It shook America up. Young people saying that we want the 99%. There was a statistic in America, there was an article in The Atlantic, which is a magazine, which said that 1% of people in America own more assets than 99% of America. And suddenly young people, it went viral on the net, and suddenly people said, wait a minute, there's something very wrong with the times in which we live. And so what people did was they occupied Wall Street physically. And they said, we want these people to be taxed more. We want a fair share. I mean, I've just thrown an idea out there. What if the 100 richest corporations in India, 100 richest companies, 100 richest individuals, were given one of India's 100 poorest districts and told to concentrate over the next 5 years on that? Don't you think that would make some sort of a change? Today we talk about CSR, right? But we all know CSR is a sham. They say 2% of CSR has to be spent, corporate social responsibility. And what happens? An industrialist's wife hosts an art exhibition and that's seen as CSR. Seriously. Somebody whose child who's like this fat is hosting a football tournament. It's criminal. And the truth is that why are we quiet about it? I'll tell you why we're quiet about it. Because we don't feel protected in the system. Let's say we voice our opinion. How many percent of Indians are connected via the internet? Do you have any idea? 19%. That is astonishingly little. 19% of people have internet access. And let's be honest, not all those people are on social media, right? The fact is that if 19% in India can make such a hue and cry, because they do, we do, what if 90% of India had their voice heard? Then you'd really have a revolution happening. The right kind of revolution. We don't voice our opinion when it matters. And yet when we do, very quickly social change happens. See, no change can happen without struggle. History has taught us that. The fact is that I was reading about Nikita Azad, who is a 20-year-old girl who started the Taboo campaign for the entry of women in Sabrimala temple, which I totally support, by the way. And she just wrote an article on one of the social media websites, and then somebody filed a PIL in Supreme Court, and I hope they win. And the fact is that, you remember Shreya Singhal's case, the 66A? The fact is that wherever you look, it's not that young people are not standing up and getting counted. The problem is that it's not happening in a large enough dimension, and it's not happening in an organized enough manner. You know, let's just look at examples of inequality, right? In India, the top 10% of people own 84% of all assets that are privately owned in this country. In the last 10 years, it's become 93%, which means that India is becoming more unequal as it becomes richer, not more equal. I was looking at a figure of unemployment. I'm a member of parliament from UP, and I don't know if you know, but there was a recent figure in UP about 368 posts for a PN were floated, and 23 lakh candidates applied, out of which 2.2 lakh were engineers and 255 were PhD holders for the post of a PN. Right? And the fact is, you read that, and the fact is, I mean, it's really shameful. It just shows you how bad things are in our country. We talk about unemployment, right? The fact is, more than 19% of students with a degree, postgraduate or otherwise, are unemployed in our country. But that's not the worst statistic. The worst statistic is out of 480 million working people in this country, 56% of them earn less than $2 a day. The United Nations calls them working poor. If you earn less than $2 a day, you're not employed, you're enslaved. It's just that you're enslaved institutionally. And yet, look at what young people have been able to achieve globally, right? Look at the Arab street. Tunisia had a dictator called President Ali for 23 years. I think it's called the Jasmine Revolution. And students got together and they protested, first in one university and then every university, and that dictator was ousted from power democratically. Because when students protest, it becomes not just a political message, but it becomes a sanctified message. There is a purity associated with it. Look at what happened in Hong Kong. There was last year something called the Umbrella Revolution by the Hong Kong Federations of Students and Scholarship, which brought 100,000 young people in Central Square who continued a sit-in protest for 30 days to protect the island from autocratic elements. And the 6 people that they named had to all resign. See, it doesn't mean that the problems would immediately get solved, but it puts those people on watch. It tells them that at any given time, there can be a social tinderbox waiting, which is also a moral tinderbox, and that is more important. If we look at the fact that what are the 2 greatest threats to the progress of India? I would say one is agricultural distress and one is the health sector. I know this probably doesn't occur to you, but let me just tell you my experience. When you go to a village, people approach you with 2 kinds of problems. One, they say we're broke because we have medical bills to pay and we can't afford it. And the second, they say we're broke because the sugar mill, the rice mill, etc. hasn't paid us our dues. And why does this happen? It happens because in India, we're practicing green revolution agriculture long after the world has abandoned it. Single cropping, cash crops, which the government will buy through MSP, right? Now the fact is, out of 40 crops, only 4 crops are in the MSP list. And those are the crops that are doing the worst of all. I'll give you an example of sugarcane. You may have heard in UP, in Maharashtra, the states that are actually doing fiscally the worst, sugarcane is the biggest crop. Why does it do so badly? Because one end of sugarcane is legitimized and one is delegitimized. What do I mean by that? That on one hand, you say to a sugarcane farmer and to a mill, this is the price at which you will sell your cane. 300 rupees per quintal is your price. But the mill has to sell it on the open market, and world commodity prices have crashed. So they say, we don't want to go bust buying stuff from the farmers which we can't sell further. So what do? Either they don't buy or they buy it and then they don't buy it any further till the prices go up, so the farmer's destitute anyway. The fact is that both ends of production cycle don't meet. It's a simple thing, either you regulate industry or you don't regulate it. But I think in our country, one of the worst possible things is that we don't think policy through. I'll give you an example, okay? Something I just read yesterday. I wrote an article for the Economic Times yesterday, the main edit, and it's on the upcoming budget. And when I was researching the article, I just was reading about corn imports. And why is corn being imported? because of very large poultry manufacturers that have obviously greased a few palms and said, you import it. So you import a hell of a lot of corn, and who eats corn? Poultry. People in India don't really eat that much corn. And so what happens? The corn prices then crash, and every farmer that has then planted corn is suddenly broke. So the fact is that who are we making policy for? Are we making policy for the richest amongst us? Or are we making policy to really see that our country can get on its feet? That is the systemic question that needs to be asked. In the state of Bihar, over 60% of children under the age of 5 are malnourished, and 38% of them have stunted growth. I mean, that sounds like sub-Saharan Africa to me, right? And the fact is that 38 million people every year in India are pushed into poverty because of spiraling healthcare costs. In the West, almost everybody has health insurance. In India, 96% of health insurance is concentrated in the top 6 cities in India. What does that mean? It means that nobody's really insured, and it means that private healthcare expenditure is the highest in the world, which means when I get ill, the government can't take care of me. And because the government can't take care of me, therefore people often ask me, why is there caste politics? Why is there regional politics? Why is there religious politics? And I think about it. And I think the one reason that caste politics prevails is because caste provides people with an invisible social network. It provides people with a security net, which may not be real, but it's perceived. Because people feel, okay, if I'm of this caste and this person is this caste, they might look out for me. When in fact they may not. That's actually the worst reason to vote for somebody. But the thing is, because people feel that, because they're so frightened and insecure and alone. And I think those 3 adjectives describe most poor people living in India today. I mean, why is it that in an average household which farms both rice and wheat in a year, according to the Commission of Agricultural Costs and Prices, the average income is 1,300 rupees a month. 1,300 rupees a month. That's for those people who are feeding us. See, why did this happen? Because we've always felt that a trickle-down economics would work. That you invest, you do social spending, and soon it will reach the poor. But that was a total failure. It is a total failure. I mean, it's a hugely capitalist principle, and it has never worked. It hasn't worked anywhere in the world. The reason that the West hasn't been bankrupt like us is because people have had access to credit. If you try and go to a bank and say, give me a 10 lakh rupee loan, I want to start a business, mudra or otherwise, you are most likely not going to get that loan. Because you're going to be told that please give, आप अपने ज़मीन के कागज़ दे दो. अब जिसके पास एक ही ज़मीन है, जिसके माता पिता के पास एक ही property है, they're not going to pledge that for their child whose business may or may not succeed. So because there's no credit worthiness for young people, therefore dreams will always remain just dreams. See, I have a few ideas, but I want to talk about also what can be done, simple things. I'll give you an example. My maternal grandmother died a few years ago. And before she died, she said to me, I'm going to leave you some money and I want you to do something good with it. So when she died, I thought, well, what should I do? Should I build something religious? Would that make her happy? And I thought, okay, no, that's all rubbish. Let me just actually do something which will help people. So I got scientists from Pusa Institute and Punjab Agricultural University, And I took them to Pilibhit, which is the constituency then I was MP from. And we went from village to village over 3 months. And I said, why are you poor? And they said, well, we're poor because of one very basic reason. We do cash crops. People buy them when they want. They don't buy them when they want. Sometimes they buy them for a price for which we lose while we pay it. We don't know what to do. So I said, well, why don't you farm something else? And they said, we don't know what to farm. So I said, okay, if I can teach you new farming techniques, would that be something you'd be interested in? They said, great. And so we took these scientists and we said, okay, don't plant this in 100% of your field because it's a risk. Plant it in 30% of your field. And we got them to plant things like iceberg lettuce, artichoke, asparagus, cherry tomatoes, things that people in Pilibhit wouldn't farm. And yet, and what I did with the money that my grandmother left me is that we bought these air-conditioned lorries to transport that every day to Delhi. And we tied up with people at INA Market. And today, over 20% of produce that you eat at INA Market in terms of fresh fruits and vegetables comes from that constituency. And we created the single largest profit-making cooperative in UP, where now farmers who are absolutely destitute, today we have over 40,000 farmers, 24,000 already farming, 16,000 will start in the next 1 year. That's 40,000 families who are earning a minimum of 50,000 rupees to 1 lakh a month. That's a lot of money for people who had nothing. It's a minority-dominated constituency. So I went to these Muslim women and I said, आप सिलाई कढ़ाई का काम करते हैं और बहुत सुंदर तरीके से करते हैं, but you seem very, very poor. And they said, because खरीदता कौन है? So I said, what can we do to upmarket this product? So I read somewhere that Belgian lace, which is used, in wedding dresses and, on the side of tablecloths and things like that, is now getting almost extinct because it's so difficult to make and it's handmade. And I thought these women worked so well with their hands if they were taught. So I went to Belgium and I met a lot of people, and most of them said, no, we don't want to come to India. And finally I met this group of 8 people who said, yeah, we'll come, but you have to pay us. And I said, that's fine, because, jobs done free are often not done well at all. So I said, okay, come and, teach these people. And they came and they taught 800 women. And today, those women have taught other women, and there are 4,000 women now who are making Belgian lace. It's not as good as the quality that they make in Belgium, but it's 1/10 the price. And today we're exporting it to 12 countries, and all of them have formed a little cooperative, which obviously we're not a part of. And they're earning 5,000 rupees a month, today they're earning 30,000 rupees a month each. And I would love to take students like you to these projects to show you that a little success. When Gandhiji went to Champaran, he didn't take politicians with them and security people and all that jing-bang. He just took lawyers with him. He just took advocates. And he said, just file the reports of these indigo farmers. And people said, Gandhiji, you're going to Bihar for the first time. Let us welcome you with thousands of people. He said, no. And they said, why? And Gandhiji was a great strategist. And he said, because a small success will lead to a huge ripple effect. And if I can deliver justice to these 100 people, lakhs of people in India will start believing in our initiative. And that's what I believe. I entered politics it was very strange. I was at the London School of Economics, and I came back to do a thesis on underdevelopment. And underdevelopment is an economics theory which is vaguely why poor people keep getting poorer, frankly. It's a leftist theory. It went out of fashion a few years ago. And I went to Nandurbar, which is a place in Maharashtra. It's one of the poorest constituencies in India. And obviously, this is in 98, 99. There were no hotels there or even guest houses to stay. So the district magistrate said, would you come and stay with me? I said, sure. And I stayed with him. And he said, lots of people here have been connected with your family and would like to come and see you. But my dhoban also wants to meet you, my washerwoman. And I said, yeah, great. And she came to me, and she was tribal and obviously terribly living on the margins of existence, and her clothes were dirty, and she was wearing torn chappals. And she came to me, and her hand was clenched, her fist was clenched, and she put her hand out and she put something in my hand, and I opened it, and it was a 2 rupees note. The pink color 2 rupees note that you don't see anymore, which is not in existence. And she said, ye desh ke liye hai. And it just shook me up, because I thought, who've been advantaged in the most severe manner of most anyone I know, I've never thought about anybody other than myself. And I've never done anything for anybody other than myself. And if this woman who's living in utter penury, in debilitating destitution, if this woman can have a concept of the nation and how she needs to give back, then it's a great shame that I, having got so much from this country, don't give back. So I thought, okay, let me try and make my voice felt so that we can really do something, get moving. I think that one of the key things in this country is to avoid the trickle-down approach and to look bottom-up. Start with the Panchayati Raj institutions, right? Why do Panchayati Raj institutions fail? I'm writing a book. I write poetry, but I'm trying to write a book which is an economics book. And it's a book on subsidiarity, which is the notion that decisions need to be very close to people who they affect, decentralization. And the book talks about whether villages can actually exist as models of socioeconomic syntax. And I think that the main thing is to allow villages to generate their own income, which is not there today. If I'm a pradhan of a village, what incentive do I have really? I mean, let's look at education, right? I've started something in my constituency which is very basic. And I'll tell you what it is. I got all the government school teachers together. And I said, right, the government school in this district that does the best, I will, from my own personal money, give 10 lakh rupees to that school. And I've applied to the government of India whether we can create league tables. Like you have Premier League tables in football and stuff. So like league tables for schools. So see which schools are doing better. See which schools have got interesting new initiatives. Maybe bring in an NGO to see that they aren't lying or fibbing about their initiatives. And if we can do that, if we can incentivize government schools to do better, to create new things. Let's say we take the 5 best teachers. We take the 5 schools where the marks have improved the most over the last 1 year. And we award them. We award them publicly, which is what I'm going to do over the next 1 year in my district. Then suddenly people come alive and they say, wait a minute, maybe we can be awarded like this, right? Maybe we can, like for instance, there was one person we found who was from a very poor family, from a Nishad family. Nishads are boatmen. They live on the side of riverine belts, and was a fantastic swimmer. And because I suppose that's what they do. And I said, how can I be of service to you? And he said, well, I like to swim, but I don't have any training. And obviously there aren't any swimming pools in Sultanpur. So I said, okay, and so what we did is, I went around and I said, okay, if we're going to do this for one boy, then let's just find out who else is interested. And we got 13 people, 5 girls and 8 boys, and now we've sent them to officially train as swimmers. And so it is my dream that maybe, because they're 12 and 13, maybe 5 years from now or 10 years from now, one of them could earn a medal. It would give me great joy and pride. The point is, we've all got to do our bit. You know, when you live like this is not your land, you know, in India, we're all great patriots when it comes to, you know, cricket matches and things like that. But are we really patriots? I'm not sure. Because if you see somebody spitting on the road, right, spitting pan on the road, and you go to them and you say, why are you spitting on this road? Their first instinct is, tumhare baap ka road hai. That's what they say, right? People have said it to me 100 times. And I say, ji, mere baap ka road hai. You know, it's after a long time that I've come to Delhi University, and I was joking with Principal Srivastava. I was saying that now we get to speak at those places where we wouldn't have got admission in the first place. And, you know, I went to Oxford. I went to LSE, but I got into Oxford. And I went there for my interview. And Oxford has a very bizarre system, because what they do is the guy who interviews you, you don't know that, but they're from a completely different discipline, because they're not testing your knowledge on the subject, they're testing your overall sort of IQ or whatever. And the guy looked at my form and he said, you've said you like reading. What do you like reading? And I thought, I must say something really fancy. So I said, I like reading literary criticism. I had no idea what that meant. So he said, what? He said, that sounds pretty impressive. He said, who's your favorite literary critic? And I just finished reading Henry David Thoreau's On Walden Pond. And I said, Henry David Thoreau. And he looked at me suspiciously. And he said, Henry David Thoreau wasn't a literary critic. And I looked at my future going up in flames out of the window. And I said, Professor, his entire life was an act of literary criticism. And he looked at me and he said, Mr. Gandhi, either you're going to be a great man one day, and he paused, or you're going to be a spectacular bullshitter your whole life. And I said to him 1 year later, when I chose to go to LSE, and I went out and I said, Professor, now that I know it's the second one, where do I go from here? And he said, join politics, of course. I think that if I were just to conclude, I would just say one last thing, which is, you know, the greatest quality in a human being is kindness, and it's empathy. And if I've learned one lesson in these nearly 36 years, it's that if you do good to those who are less fortunate, and if you voice your dissent for that which you believe is wrong, ultimately the universe will take care of you, and you will be protected. And I've come here to this most prestigious institution with the belief that in front of you lies a life of great success, great adventure, and great endeavor. And I've come here with the belief that in you lies boundless opportunities for goodness and kindness. And I hope that in the course of your lives, you will remember to be vigilant, to challenge yourself, to dream big, to assert your individuality, and to be as kind as you can. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of all the students, I would like to express this fact to you, that we all hope that our endeavors shall reaffirm your belief. Yes, sir, we'll be taking some questions. You can... All right. We're ready to take questions.
Yeah, are there any questions? Sure, yeah. No?
Good morning, sir.
Hi.
Hello, sir.
Oh, hi. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Sir, in the former part of your speech, you emphasized that MPs are scared of their party whips.
Right.
Yeah, so...
No,
why-
what I actually said was, I didn't say MPs are scared of their party leaders. What I said was, the present political system doesn't actually grant you a lot of space as an individual. And what I meant by that was, I'll give you an example. Shashi Tharoor right now proposed a bill in parliament where he said that homosexuality should be decriminalized, right? Now the BJP voted against that, but I was in favor of that bill. I feel that homosexuality should not be a criminal act, right? But because the party issues a whip and a stand, therefore either you vote with that whip or you get expelled from the party. So the fact is that unlike America, like if you look at the Senate or Congress, right? Very few bills in America have party whips. What they say is that individual representatives will be judged by their voting record. So ultimately what I feel is that we need a freer and more democratic system where individuals can actually assert their individuality. That's what I want for the India of tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
But,
Yeah. Right. Yeah, sure. Right. I can't hear it. Casteism, yeah.
In January, you might be aware about this, that Rohit Vemula
I am
committed
aware.
suicide in University of Hyderabad. And I'm just wondering, what is your viewpoint? Because one of your minister is being accused as abetting the suicide of that person.
My view is very simple. My view is this, that when you talk about privatizing education, right? I'm not sure I agree with the privatization of education. I'm not sure I agree with that whole WTO GATT thing, because I believe that when you go in for 100% privatization, what happens is the weaker sections are the worst affected, because the way in which those processes are formed may look meritocratic to somebody who's always been advantaged, but to somebody who's completely disadvantaged, they will be a death knell. And any death is a tragedy, right? So of course it's a tragedy. I can't speak for the minister concerned because I've come here in my individual capacity, but I'd obviously say that I didn't realize, ma'am, till this incident had happened, how much caste remains an identity, a flagstaff, even in our educational institutions. Because I thought at the highest end, all humans are treated with equal dignity. If that is not the case, then that's something to be very ashamed of. Yeah, please. Yeah, just go ahead, I'll probably hear you.
Sir, we have a question this side, right in front here.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
My question is, in the beginning of your speech, you have
Right.
said that the businessman or the business tycoon should adopt a poorest village for its
No,
development.
a district.
Yeah,
What's a
district.
village?
Yeah, it's a district. But last year in your government, this policy was being made that
No, it was not. What we were asked to do was each MP was asked to adopt a village.
Village, yeah.
But that's not enough, boss. I have 2,400 villages in my constituency. If I spend all my money in one, how is that equitable? So no, what I said was that the richest amongst us, who've been the biggest beneficiaries of crony capitalism, I'm not against capitalism, I'm against crony capitalism. They need to be called into account and they need to pay their fair share. And the way to pay their fair share is not increasing income tax to 90% because they'll just use chartered accountants to steal their way out of that. The way to do that is to say, okay, right, build 50 schools, 50 primary healthcare centers, 1 sports facility, 3 marriage halls, whatever. Whatever is the fountain of social life, socio-agricultural, economic life in that area. If they can be squeezed to do this, then we really have some progress to look at.
But sir, does that policy of adopting the village has some progress? Like it's really
Yes, it has, but as I just said to you, if I have 2,000 villages in my constituency, I can make a model village. Now, what a model village will do on the plus side is it will be aspirational. Other villages will look at that village and they'll say, wow, if that village could do it, we could do it. But you see, the problem with that is there is too much work to be done. And so when you create temples of modernity amongst ghettos of mediocrity or poverty, that sometimes leads to more social unrest. Yeah. Yeah, the lady there. Yeah, sure.
Hello. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Great speech that was indeed, sir.
Thank you.
I just have one question, which is
Yeah.
a general one, right? As we all know, media is the fourth pillar of our
Yeah.
So I have one question to you: is that basically what do you have to say about the relation these media houses have with political parties at the end of the day? Because
With corporates actually, which is more important.
that's there,
Yeah.
right? But also with political parties, because when a person like Rajiv Sardesai goes ahead and criticizes the government, he goes on to be called an anti-BJP person, right?
Yeah.
Whereas somebody which is immorally wrong for him to say, apparently. Whereas somebody like Rajat Sharma goes ahead and supports Arun Jaitley, that seems to be completely justified. So what are your views on
See, what we've got to get out of in India is this you slap my back, I slap your kind of system. Because today what we're seeing is not, I don't want to take names here, but the fact is that what you're saying is not wrong at all. And the fact is that you see, in any democracy, the democracy can only flower if you celebrate dissent. If you want to annihilate dissent, whether in a village or in the United Nations, it's never going to work. Where the media is concerned, the media has been constructively important in a manner of cases, taking up great causes, getting people justice in many cases, but also there is a section of the media that is very predatory. And there's also a section of the media, like a section of the polity, like a section of the society, which is not entirely honest. And the fact is, when I fought my election this time, the local newspapers, the 2-3 local newspapers there, they would come to my people all the time and say, give us ads, give us ads. And because we didn't give them ads, we didn't get any media play. And on one page, you would have Panja Pada Bhari. And then underneath that, you would say, cycle ki raftar badi. And on one page. So it becomes a little comical. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you that nobody in India has the right to call somebody else anti-national until they're proved anti-national. So that's first of all. And yeah, and I completely agree with you that I get trolled on Twitter. I just post stuff on Twitter. I don't really comment too much, but I get people abusing me quite a lot. And that's fine, you know, that shows that you're doing the right thing. Yeah, morning. I actually said we need to act for the poor. Feeling is immaterial. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're right. Good point. Yeah. What? Okay. I'm told we're out of time, so last 3-4 questions. Yeah, sure. I'm sorry, I can only see lights. It's a divine presence in our midst.
Thank you for your questions.
That's fine, I'll take 3-4 questions more, that's okay. Are you in a hurry?
No, we thought you had.
No, that's fine. I'll take 3-4 questions. Yeah, please. He was fighting for all of us. Yeah. But why is that? I tried to explain that in my speech. I think the reason is, if you're talking about a sociological transition, that's a very, very broad question. I think that if I may answer your question very briefly, it's this. The search for identity is more acute today than it was 50 years ago. Why? Because people weren't aware of their individual importance 50 years ago. Today, people are self-confident, they are ambitious, and they're aspirational. And therefore, people want to grab their fair share, which they should. And so how do you do that in a system which doesn't celebrate your individuality? It doesn't celebrate your right to achieve. You use caste, you use religion, you use any identity platform that you can get to try and assert yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying? Are you following what I'm saying? So, yeah, you want to talk about farmers? Okay, so I'll talk about farmers then. So the answer to the farmers thing is that when we have broad centralized schemes for farmers, that is never going to work. What needs to be done is to link. One of the things that I didn't mention was there's an amazing thing done in China by this lady called Xi Yan, who's made a project called Shared Harvest. If you have the time, please look it up. So what she's done is she's linked farmers directly with buyers and eliminated the middlemen. She wanted to do it to start organic farming, but what's ended up happening is prices have fallen and farmers' incomes have risen by more than double. This is done in 300,000 acres, so it's a huge thing. You need area-specific, like Farrukhabad has potatoes, right? But those potatoes just rot. Now, what if we were to find out what companies work with potatoes and where do they process those potatoes? So we would say that they do it in Baroda, but they should be encouraged to actually put up factories in Farrukhabad, because when they do that, immediately it will mean cheaper transportation costs for them and it will mean greater benefits to those farmers there. So what needs to actually be done is to look at it area by area. There's enough in India to go around if you plan correctly. Thank you. Yeah, just
Sir,
the last two questions.
We'll just keep the last question here
Yeah.
since we're running short of time.
Sure.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So my question is, what is the basic cause of unemployment according to you? Is it lack of education or lack of opportunity?
Could it be overpopulation? No, I'm serious. Although after my father, I really don't want to go down that road, to be honest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Your words have left an indelible impression in all our minds, and I'm sure the audience is better informed after this session. As a small token of appreciation, we'd like to present you with something. I may request the principal to kindly felicitate the guest. Thank you so much, sir. It was an honor to have you with us.